Hello, my dear friends. Welcome again to part 2 of the lesson discussion of this week. Hope that you enjoyed part 1 and there is something which you learned from part 1. Now, as we are going to explore more about the roots of Abraham, we need to know that Abraham was called by God to move from Ur to the land where God was showing him. Abraham never hesitated. He moved, not knowing where he was going. He believed that where he was going was to be a very pleasant place. So he trusted in God in everything he was doing. So, as we look at that as Christians also, we are called nowadays to leave back the things which might hinder us from accepting God's call. Let us acknowledge the will of God in our lives. Let us come forth from our comfortable zones and serve the Lord who has called us. As we saw that Abraham, after going to Canaan, there is an anger in Canaan. He also moved from Canaan to Egypt in search of food, and this anger was a temptation of perseverance and patience in the Abraham. So God wanted to test Abraham to see whether he will still continue to trust in him or he will go back to where he was called. He will go back to the land of the Chaldeans. But after the anger, Abraham never went back to the land of the Chaldeans, but instead of going back to the land of the Chaldeans, he went to the nearest place, that is Egypt, so that to search a refugee there for some small time, so that when the anger is over, he will go back to the land where God has placed him. My dear friend, when God has called you out of any circumstance and you face the trials, will the trials cause you to go back to where God has called you from? Learn from Abraham. We get also Abraham get a dispute with the Lord, and now they have separated. Abraham has given Lot a chance to choose for himself a place comfortable to himself. Lot overlooked the moral and spiritual evils that could be encountered and chose the plain of Jordan and pitched his tent towards Sodom because of its fertility. He never looked about the spiritual evils that he would encounter, but he only looked about the fertility of the plain of Jordan. So he pitched his tent there. After he had established himself and grown rich in the earthly treasure, he was convinced that he had made a mistake in not taking consideration the moral standing community in which he was to make his home. Now, after he has got rich, after he has established himself, that's when he recognized his mistake of choosing the community without regarding its spiritual weaknesses. My dear friends, when we make any choice, do we consider or we came to regret later, just as Lot is regretting choosing Sodom and Gomorrah without considering the wickedness and the evil in that city? Abraham was a man of God. When he pitched his tent after coming from Egypt, at once erected altar for sacrifice and invited God to abide with him. After he came from Egypt, what he has done first is to pitch an altar so that he can offer sacrifices to God. So in his aim, in his life, he always placed God first. In whatever you do you place God first? Abraham was courteous man. His life isn't marred with selfishness, so hateful in character and offensive in the sight of God. Is a faithful man, a courteous man, a man without selfishness, a man without greed, and his character is shown in how he has appropriated properly the problem which has arisen between him and Lot. He gave Lot the first chance, though he was younger than him and he was his nephew. He just given him the first chance. We should be self-forgetful, ever watching for the opportunities to cheer others and lighten and relieve their sorrows and burdens by acts of tender kindness and the retro deeds of love. These thoughts, courtesies that commencing in our families extend outside the family circle help make up the sum of life's happiness. If we have Christ abiding with us, we shall be Christians at home as well as abroad. If we have Christ abiding with us, we shall be Christians at home as well as abroad. Don't be Christians only at your homes, only at churches. Be Christians where you are. Just show the character of Jesus Christ where you are, no matter in which country you are, no matter in which situation you are. Show the character of God, show the character of Christianity everywhere. He who is a Christian will have kind words for his relative and associates. His relative, he will be kind, laughing, sympathetic, and will be educating himself for the abode with the family above. He who is a Christian will have a kind words for his relative and associates. He will be kind, laughing, sympathetic, and will be educating himself for the abode with the family above. That is the true Christian, the one who has been called to carry the cross of Jesus Christ. Now after this, after Abraham has separated with Lot, we have the conflict, Babel coalition. After separation of Abraham and Lot, we have the war recorded in the first time. Now here in the Bible, this is the first case of the war recorded in the Bible, in the scripture, in the book of Genesis 14 verse 2. Here we have the kings uniting themselves so that they can fight against other kings. We have the king of Shinar, the king of Elisha, the king of Gohim, the king of Elam. All these are uniting to fight against the king of Sodom, Gomorrah, Adama, and Zeboim. They are united to fight. The king of Sodom and his group were defeated, and all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah, including Lot, were captured. When Abraham heard it, he went out with trained men, 318 trained men, and brought back all the goods and also Lot his nephew. We have a war recorded in the Bible. How the kings have come and they have fought against Sodom and Gomorrah, and they have taken Lot and all the things of Sodom and Gomorrah. They have captured them, and Lot was one of them who was taken as a prisoner. When Abraham heard about it, he just arranged himself and went with trained men, 318 trained men, and he trusted in the God, and he brought back the goods and also brought Lot his nephew. When all the Canaanites king have been united for war, Abraham was the only one left, since he was the true owner of the land, as the conflict involved the issue and sovereignty over the land. The reason why Abraham is neutral is that he has acquired the promised land not through the force of arm or through the wisdom of political strategies, but it was a gift given by God. Abraham only intervened to rescue his nephew, who was taken as a prisoner. Genesis 14 verse 12 and 13. When Abraham learned that his nephew was taken as a prisoner, he didn't awaken the unkind memory of Lot's ungrateful or ingratitude, but he was determined to rescue him. Do you have a grudge against your neighbor? When your neighbor or when your friend or when your enemy has fallen into trials, has fallen into temptations, and he needs your help, do you have a grudge? Do you say, this one did this and this to me, so I will not help him? Abraham He never wakened the unkind memory or the ungrateful of Lot, but instead he went to rescue him. Abraham didn't attack the whole coalition, but the attack only where Lot was held in prison and saves him. The faithful man of God showed great courage and fortitude, no doubt, and trusting in God, and people saw the kind of man he was and learned something more of the God whom he served. What kind of influence do your actions have on others? My dear friend, what kind of influence do your actions have on others? What kind of message are we sending about our faith by our actions? What kind of message are we sending about our faith by our action? Do your actions speak more than your words? Do your actions speak that you are the Son of God? Do your actions speak that you are a Christian, or you are only called by the name? Come out of your mind. Know that you have been called by God to be a representative of Him. We are the ambassadors of Jesus Christ, just as Abraham. Let our faith, let our actions speak more of whom we serve. Abraham's courage act was seen that righteous is not cowardice. That his religion made him courageous in maintaining the right and defending the oppressed. His heroic act gave him a widespread influence among, among the surrounding tribes. Just becoming a Christian is not to be cowardice, so that you cannot fight against the rights of the needs people. Those ones who are being tempted, those ones who are being oppressed. We have been called to come out, to speak out for them. We are the mouth for them to speak. We have the right to speak with them. Just as Abraham went and released Lot, you have been called to release those ones who have been or who are being oppressed. Every act of our lives affects others for good or for evil. Our influence is tending upward or downward. If by our examples we aid others in development of good principles, we give them power to do good and also to influence others, thus hundreds and thousands are affected by our unconscious influence. Every act of our lives affects others for good or for evil. Our influence is tending upward or downward. If by our example we aid others in development of good principles, we give them power to do good and also they influence others. Thus, hundreds and thousands are affected by our unconscious influence. Be blessed as we are waiting for the next part, which is the last part. Hope you will watch it also.